I'm Crystal Graham, and I'm joined here by Terry Short, who was recently reelected to Waynesboro City Council. Terry, what term does this make for you
Number
this year?
three. Number three. Yeah, third time,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Thanks for having me.
So, yeah, absolutely. And so I thought maybe we could take a few minutes just to kind of update people in Waynesboro here. Obviously, you've been involved in city politics for a fair amount of time now, and you have your feet wet maybe more than I chatted with Lori Struther, and of course she's new to Waynesboro City Council and still learning things, but you've been around a little bit longer here, so maybe your questions might be a little bit tougher. We'll see.
Game on. Anything. Anything.
Yeah, yeah. But let's first talk just about the election because it was a little bit different this time. I was chatting with Lori too about how elections have shifted just in the sense that they used to be held in May. They're in November now. You're right up against the presidential election. And this time, instead of running for at large, you chose to run for Ward B. So you were able to, I think you said, with all your other responsibilities, kind of hone in on one area. But I thought maybe, you could just briefly talk about how Waynesboro elections have changed as a result of these moves that were made kind of by the General Assembly, and how it likely or doesn't benefit the citizens of Waynesboro.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for the question. So I would offer that yes, going from the at-large seat to I got a promotion about a year ago, so I knew that was not out of the not in the cards to do a citywide campaign. Particularly, it's uncharted waters. None of us knew what the experience was going to be like running on a national ticket, right? So that context, and then of course I got another promotion 6 weeks ago, so that's sort of like definitely made it the right choice to hone in on one part of the community. Heather and I were out there today scooping up our signs, and I turned to her and I said, "Well, it's nice not to have to drive all over the city to go scoop signs up after the election." So that was great. I was I think I might have mentioned to Chris and maybe you in passing in the past. I was an advocate of and supporter of moving elections from May to November, simply because while I will forever grateful for the opportunity for the entire tenure that I've been on council and that opportunity, it is sort of uh, consistent. We would only get 18-20% voter turnout in May elections, and it might sound sappy or hokey, but I mean, I genuinely do think about those that are serving our country and who have committed and lost their lives for our country. And I feel like I'm a fan of democracy, and however it shakes out, it shakes out that way. But I really wanted to empower more people to vote, and if whatever that for convenience or otherwise. So to have nearly 70% voter turnout and still come up on top is just incredible. And still, it's not all settled in yet, to be honest with you. Um,
Yeah.
but I think, uh, yeah, super grateful. And I think the dynamic that I would offer up from this experience is, which I've shared with Chris, I've shared with numerous people at this point of what I want to try to steward and maybe sort of get some folks together. This was my last campaign for council. I won't run again, and so I really want to start turning our attention to how can we as a community really step up and help our constituents and our neighbors and our friends and our family to know what the issues are in our community that are facing us, the how closely connected the decision makers that you elect on council have on your everyday life, way more than anybody in DC,
Mhm.
way more than anybody in Richmond. And to how to make those connections. I think the observation that I had that really hit me and sunk with me, and bothered me was, you jump over to Stanton and they had 6 or 7 candidate forums and debates, and gratefully, with Augusta Free Press help, with some candidate Q&As, and then Rise had a singular forum leading up to the election with just a couple of candidates. The community really didn't get a chance to sort of hear what are the goals and visions and dreams and aspirations for those that want to represent a community of 23,000 people. And I think that is a really unfortunate and a disservice. I would have, Will Flory and I, really, I think had a real great opportunity to really kind of get to know each other. And I never even spent even a fractional amount of time with him before. But on election day, we spent the whole day with each other,
Mhm.
and we sort of shared about that. It's really kind of a missed opportunity. So I really want to,
Yeah.
before the next council election, really want to try to create a nonpartisan, Waynesboro centric, um,
Mhm.
some sort of not-for-profit organization that will lead that effort and hopefully inspire other entities to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be that there were a lot more things like that done in Waynesboro, and we look at the race, the at-large race, and 1,500 people voted in the presidential election and didn't vote for their city council representative, and I know that following our Facebook page, we wrote a story about that and just about that, that number of undervotes. I called the registrar that night to say, is this right? Did something get transposed? Like something doesn't seem right here, and we broke it down and it was those early voters that, that primarily in the largest numbers that didn't vote for that at-large seat. And, you just look at that and you say, you're right. Maybe there's not enough information getting out there to people, as far as who the local candidates are. But, I was talking with Lori and, one of the things that I was talking with her about, is because in the new role, she doesn't really know what she's like stepping into. You know what I mean? But you
Sure.
do, you've been there, and I think that people probably think of, people going to business meetings in suits and ties as maybe not approachable. But I mean, what are the kinds of things that you deal with most often with your constituents?
Yeah, so I would say I am arguably the most social media engaged individual on council. I believe in, it's championed our YouTube channel, championed the establishment of departmental, and then ultimately a social media presence for the city. And so those didn't exist 8 years ago, and um, so I think that's has provided an opportunity to get kind of that feedback and at least sort of try to introduce. But you can imagine cat videos are getting a lot more attention than than what's kind of going on at a council meeting, and so we don't get the engagement. The thing that I hear most about folks is they just want to live in a community that is insightful, that is thinking about the future, anticipating needs, being setting the course of a plan, and then executing the plan. And
Mhm.
I had a moment. I was actually going to reshare it yesterday. It came up on my memories of when we did our comprehensive plan update in 2017, 2018, and I had Kathy Johnson. I had gone over to her house and spent the whole afternoon with Kathy. She was a great advocate, and community volunteer. And I
Mhm.
spent the afternoon with Kathy, and we videotaped this little segment about what's Waynesboro all about. And so what I just said is exactly what Kathy said to me back in 2017 about wanting to be engaged and being thoughtful and making hard decisions because they're important. The thing that gets me, Crystal, all the time are folks that um, want to live in a community with the lowest taxes possible. And you know what? I want to live in the community with the lowest taxes possible. And I want to do that, but not at the harm and detriment of the community that I love. And
Mhm.
so I think you have to be, we can have those conversations, and I'll be very transparent with what our choices are. Um, but you know, not doing something has a cost as well. And
Mhm.
not leaning in and making difficult decisions that do impact my pocketbook and everybody else's pocketbook, those can have consequences, but not doing it can be way worse. And oftentimes is way worse. I mean, we've seen that with the fire station, right? So the cost of
Mhm.
building the fire station would have been demonstrably cheaper 17 years ago. But that's where we found ourselves. And so I think um, to your question about what I hear from folks, I think, being representative, trying to be as transparent as possible. Um, but again, uh, right or wrong, I have always looked at this as an opportunity to move big rocks. Um, and I try to do a good job. I had someone who wrote me a couple weeks ago. It took a little time for me to get for staff to have an opportunity to go out there and do an investigation on some road conditions, right? Some utility payments that are done. Um, and I try to do a good job of getting those inquiries, asking staff to investigate, circle back. I communicate, we communicate, and the like. But have always been. I look at these as 4 year, fast as you possibly can opportunities. Like you're only guaranteed 4 years, and so my priorities have always been to try to move big rocks that can have long term and very impactful positive enhancements to our quality of life and the direction and the future of the city.
There's no question that people like Kathy Johnson, who are so involved in the community and that kind of thing, would have that same vision. I'm curious, though, as part of your ground game when you were running for council, you said you were knocking on doors and that kind of thing. Are those the kinds of things that people wanted to talk about? I know Lori said that a lot of people just wanted to talk about boom trucks or, snow removal, things like that. I mean, what is on the minds of the people that you were able to chat with?
So overwhelmingly, I think in that context, housing affordability. I talked to lots of folks that I hit a lot of apartments
Hmm.
in Ward B, and what I heard are stories of actually I saw one of the more memorable. They were all memorable, but one gentleman I spent like 45 minutes with at his doorstep talking, and I saw him at the polls on Tuesday. And his story of um, at age 64 or so, or early 60s, becoming permanently disabled, having to move in with his son, who makes good money, but not enough for the two of them to be able to ever leave that apartment. And year over last, that apartment went up in their rent went up 30%. And
Hmm.
you can imagine what the consequence would be. The consequence would be if our community raised taxes 30% in one every year. I mean, so wow, just so impactful of a story. So trying to lean in and I'm excited about the composition, incoming composition of council. And I think where folks is where our attention is and where we want to sort of head can create some opportunities. What I hear as one potential solution. Again, there is no one solution. There's a series of solutions, but one solution that we really aren't leaning in on is identifying a property that the city might be able to acquire. There's only so much real estate left in the city, but some property that we might be able to acquire that has, to the highest degree possible, some built-in infrastructure and everything from water, sewer, but also transit access and the like. And then creating some opportunities where we could then go and pivot and look for grants and the like to build an inventory uh, of affordable housing options. That
Hmm.
I think that's what I hear as a barrier. So I'm very interested to collaborate with my incoming partners to see what we might be able to do in that regard. I'm leaning in right now. I've already mentioned to you, I've got coffees and lunches got set up with a lot of folks
Hmm.
because it is fast and furious. It can't be fast and furious, and my mindset personality is that I want it to be fast and furious,
Hmm.
and because it is urgent. And January 1, well, our first meeting, our first we'll have an organizational meeting. Um, we're already in 45 days into our budget season at that point.
Hmm.
So I don't want to, and I will encourage my colleagues that we should not sit on our hands and wish away problems. We should hit them face on, address them face on, and let's start making some managed incremental improvements to what we're hearing. And I think affordable housing is absolutely right at the tip top of the list.
Yeah, there's so much, and you almost wish that there, and I know that there are some networks where, communities talk to each other and that kind of thing, but there's some interesting things happening across the mountain with what they're doing, what you talked about with apartment complexes, raising rents. A lot of those have, changed hands over the last few years and that kind of thing. And I know that Albemarle County in particular is looking to actually give some people who were in some low income housing some help with deposits and things of that nature, through some funding that they had set aside for other uses that wasn't used. And they're still in the early stages of that. But I do think, people always wonder, well, what is government's role in this? But I think that, like you said, that, getting your heads together and trying to come up with some solutions for what you can do, whether it's, like you said, building properties or things like that. I do think that for Waynesboro, housing and the homelessness issue has played a bigger and bigger role, since COVID, and since the
Absolutely.
economy, and the
Yeah.
inflation, and that kind of thing. So I will be interested to see what you all come up with that. The other issue that I see, and this is just not just in Waynesboro, but just across the board, is you talked about how important local elections are, but about getting young people engaged and also getting, Waynesboro in a lot of ways, we say is almost like a bedroom community now because it is affordable to live here, especially compared to Charlottesville and even Albemarle County, some of the areas there, and so. But sometimes the people work in Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and maybe aren't quite as committed to the community here. So how do you engage those two important subsets, like in planning for the future? I know that you're there to represent them and that kind of thing, but I just wonder how we can get more people engaged in realizing how important local elections are.
It's hard, and I think if we you don't have to look any much further than this past election to see the apathy or lack of engagement, and so it's not just unique to Waynesboro. So I think there's a few approaches at the Rise event that we had just prior to the election. Lori had mentioned something, and I did a double take because I'm like, I I tried that. I with no success was creating a citizens academy.
Mhm.
Where we would stand up, do some application intake of 16, 20 individuals that might be interested, and to start learning about the dynamics. I really want to make sure, and I want to do all I can to, as quickly as possible, stand up some avenues where folks can become engaged, learn about how a city operates, what's an enterprise fund, what's a general fund, what's a general obligation bond, and just a little bit of what's a an ag for, and what are some of these things and why are they important, and but what I'll also, there's the big comma, right, or semicolon with it, is I think we also have a very serious conversation about why I wasn't successful and why I haven't been successful with standing up a citizen academy.
Mhm.
um, we have an incredibly lean organization. I mean, people say all the time, well, we should apply for more grants. Well, we can apply for all the grants in the world, but if I don't have enough, the employees to manage the
Mhm.
grants, what's the point of applying for the grant? And I mean, case in point, from all sorts of positions, I don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the bandwidth within the fire department that I can ask them to sit on a 12-week series with citizens in an
Mhm.
academy, or our police department,
Mhm.
um, or our public works department. We just simply don't have the bandwidth to do that because we are. Um, if we went and raised additional revenue of 2 to 3 cents on the tax rate, to generate 400 $500,000 in revenue. That's folks need to recognize that that's great, and it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but I'm only going to be able to bring on like 4 or 5 positions as a result of that, because that we've got all of the VRS and the health benefits and all that kind of stuff. So it's not as simple of, well, that's a $50,000 job. We just do it. It's not. There's a loaded rate, and so we have to count for that and all. And so along with another objective, I think we're going to have to sort of right size the house. And to be honest with people, because you can't say you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. So if you want to have these opportunities, then we need to have project managers, program managers. We need to have adequate staff in order to support these sorts of new initiatives. Otherwise, all we're doing is we're talking a big game, but at the same time, unintentionally, we're basically lying to people because I can't we can't do those things. Um, so so that'll be something as again, I'm leaning in as fast as I possibly can to try to start having those conversations now.
A lot of the talk since the presidential election has been, what can you really accomplish in 4 years, right? Because of course, coming off of COVID and that kind of thing, certainly there's been a lot of inflation and things like that. At the local level, when you look at the same kind of thing, you're saying you're in for 4 more years and you're not gonna run again. So what are your goals? Like what realistically, now that you've been in government as long as you have been,
Yeah.
what realistically do you think that you can get done in 4 years?
Yeah, I think the one, having the opportunity to continue to shepherd through the final installment of the high school renovation project is absolutely critical. Our community deserves it, and it impacts us. It's one of the first stops on any tour for any company that may be looking or considering Waynesboro is the condition of our public schools, the quality of our public schools, and we've got an exceptional um, organization and an exceptional school division. Uh, and But we also need to have modern facilities that can train and support students to not only graduate from Waynesboro, maybe head off to college, but a place for them to come home to as well and start up a new company or like. So that's certainly one. The second is going to be the natural history. Virginia Museum of Natural History is cementing that. We're going to go into the second year of a biennial budget in January. Probably not a great opportunity to sort of see that, but that's okay. We have around $1 million of remaining A&E architectural engineering work to be accomplished, and the museum's just doing a great job of pushing that forward. So I think we'll be in a good spot for the 26th session. And I certainly want to be an advocate to get that over the finish line. I think that'll be transformative for the community. And then also reverse was is back to affordable housing and homelessness and um, uh, addressing in internal staffing, our internal staffing structure, growing our community development department so that we can pursue grants through DCHD or through HUD or through extensions of the community development block grant program and start exploring opportunities, but most importantly, have the staff on hand. So that is a housing and that and affordability are important, but you've got to be in it for the long game. You've got to really craft a very strong plan. If I've learned anything in all of the seminars and things that I've sat in over the years, is housing more specifically than arguably anything else. You've really got to have your ducks in a row. You've got to have a vision. You've got to have a plan, and you have to continually continue to execute it. So um, we simply don't have the staff resources in order to support the robust
Mhm.
program that our community needs in this moment, where we are. Uh, um, uh, I've heard everything from where we're on the cusp of something, or that we've now crossed over the cusp. I like to think that I think we've actually crossed over. I think that we've got incredible momentum um, to continue to do great things, and uh, so that'll be those are the big rocks I would say this sort
Mhm.
of because they are you get these things done and they'll be transformative for the community.
Mhm. Now, I would have some readers upset with me if I didn't ask you a little bit about the development that's happening in Waynesboro right now. There is a ton of housing that is actually in some progress, right? Whether it's in before council, whether it's before the planning department, whether it's actually in construction right now. You can see where the old Moss Museum is, that those apartments, gosh, they have gone up quickly, that development there. But so there's a lot of houses, townhouses, the planned unit development that's coming online and that kind of thing. How do you feel about the direction that I know that the city, some of that land is already zoned and things like that, and so there's only so much of a hand that you have in that. But how do you feel about the direction and the fact that there is so much construction happening right now? Is that a good thing for our city?
Yeah, so I think I do think it's a good thing for the city. I think that any opportunity that we have to diversify the portfolio of housing stock that's getting ready to happen in one of these pre-existing entitlement zoning parcels, um, we should seize on those opportunities. And you don't have to look any further than the Hopeman Parkway development with 400 plus units that we just went over. In RS12, they would have all been $500,000 homes, would have had the same density in terms of acreage, but with housing, new housing start values that most folks can't touch. So we were able to partner, identify some opportunities, create some compaction, and again develop a portfolio of that. Um, I think too often, I'd like, obviously, if you've done this for with the planning commission and now this, 16 and a half years in the city,
Mhm.
um, and I think I might be on beyond the stage where, anybody who first runs or when they first get elected says, well, I'm not a politician. Well, I mean, I guess I am a politician, but I also think that I've also learned that I am so grateful for 58% of Ward B residents coming out and supporting me and to give this me an opportunity. But I've also appreciated and learned that I have also got to be mindful that I'm representing the other 42% that didn't.
Mhm.
And so I've heard the stories of being when we are getting ready to update the comprehensive plan and trying to identify where we didn't do the land use plan update in the 2017 version. We will this time. So trying to contribute in a way that is uh, to the extent of the law, which I spent a lot of time on at the polling place on Tuesday explaining the legal reasons why what folks would hope to happen isn't achievable without massive litigation that we would probably lose. So, but to the extent that we can create some opportunities to diversify and alter and more strategically place density, I'm but they've been heard, and I'll definitely try to lean in and try to contribute to the extent that we can. And for those instances that we can't, I will do all I can to communicate to folks why we can't do that. And that they still not may not believe me or appreciate it, but I mean I'm not going to lie. So that's I will be very intentional about making sure that folks hear that. And along those lines too, of the 42% that may have come out to vote, um, I when I first got on council, I mean, look at all the stuff that we've done in 8 years, 8.5 years.
Mhm.
I mean, no one's more like in shock and awe as I am, and super proud to have played even a small role in it. And all of the stuff that we've got accomplished, and we were able to do it without breaking our city financially. And I think that that's also the 42%. So being very thoughtful about I love the context of our comprehensive plan last time of catching up, keeping up, and getting ahead. Talking about the things our community wants, prioritizing things in that way will absolutely be in my mind over the next year as we forge ahead with the update to the comp plan.
I know you said that you're having some lunches, some coffees, things like that with your incoming council members. You
Mhm.
know, one of the things that of course from the outside looking in is nice to see is that there will be two black people on Waynesboro City Council. Kenny Lee, who's been there, and of course now with Lori being elected, I think Lori is the second black woman elected to Waynesboro City Council. In a city where the demographic is, I think, what, 10, 11% Black people in our community. So it's nice to see some diversity, something that we don't necessarily see on all the commissions in the city, unfortunately. Um, so I'm just curious, like going into January, knowing that the mayorship, that all that stuff is going to change, like how you feel going forward with the makeup of what we have for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly excited about collaborating with my current members and the incoming members to sort of chart that course, and we'll see how things sort of shake out over the next couple of months. Um, but we're really fortunate to have some really smart and engaged and loving people on council who really love not only the community that they are representing and by ward, but really citywide. So I'm really encouraged, and I think we're in good hands. And I know that we'll be able to find the right leader to represent and at the top of the left side of the city letterhead. Whoever the mayor and vice mayor is. So I know we'll make the right choice.
All right. Well, Terry Short, thanks for your time today. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.